Trigger warning. This video contains references to themes of suicide and depression, which some individuals may find distressing.
The first time I saw the power of walking alongside someone was a friend of mine actually at high school who I knew that his parents were having trouble, and we were tight purely because we did theatre stuff together. He'd given me a suicide note, so he's struggling at home, he's struggling at school. We got to intervene in the fact that he was going to leave school and kill himself. The idea of that was intense. My best friend, she pulled him into our friend group, like only a more popular person can do, and have that behaviour accepted. That actually turned him around. He had a solid base of people that cared about him. That was enough shielding from bullies that he got to just be himself.
Kia ora na katoa, and welcome to Let's Get Pre-Sifik, a podcast focused on providing concepts and tools for the kete, or basket of knowledge, in dealing with suicide prevention through a Pacific lens. My name is Wiriamu, or Will, and I'll be guiding us through open, honest, and sometimes confronting talanoa about improving our mental health. Pia Harpour of Ngaitai and Ngāti Porou is the Community Education Manager at Surf Life Saving. She's held many support roles over the years, from high school peer support mediator to youth leader at her church, and is no stranger to mental health issues, her own or others. As part of the Surf Lifesavers Emergency Call-Out Squad, she deals with the aftermath of death and suicide and is trained to help others in emergency situations.
Ngai tai ki tōrere, along with Ngāti Porou, Te Whānau o Waiapu, on my dad's side, and on my mum's side, Cornwall, England. My mum grew up Auckland, and my dad on the East Cape. Really the only thing they have in common is chocolate thins, those delicious biscuits.
You know, one of the things you said about your dad, every Monday night?
Yeah, because he and I are the only two in our family that have asthma. He'd take me to the pools every Monday night, and we'd swim lengths because swimming is so good for your lungs. And I messaged him the other night when I recertified and pulled a nice little swim time out of the hat, out of fresh air, and just as a thank you, because it's down to those years of having access really to the pools and to the beach that I can just do that, you know. Yeah. But that's not everyone.
You mentioned asthma. That comes along with the asthma attack. I did see when I was researching you, box breathing, these type of things around water, especially holding your breath, being comfortable holding your breath. Can you talk about your relationship to, I guess, breathing from a positive and negative point of view? Yeah.
I do know what it's like not to be able to breathe, whether that's being smashed by consecutive waves, whether that's been in asthma attacks over the years, and in the sense of box breathing, when you live close to a beach and you're a surf lifeguard, sometimes you'll be part of what's called a call-out squad or an emergency call-out squad. And so should a water-based emergency go down, an alert goes off on our phone and we race out and do a rescue or start a search or something along those lines. But it means that you're put in a position where that adrenaline kicks up real fast. And if you aren't in control of your breathing when you are trying to make these high-level decisions, how you're searching, do I put myself in this risky decision or not, you know? Is that surf beyond my capabilities for the equipment that I've got, or, you know, any of that sort of stuff while I'm doing a CPR situation? Can I think of any of the other ducks that need to be lined up for this to be as successful as it can be for what I carry? And your breathing plays a massive part in that, because if you're not fueling your brain, you're going to be moving your thought from your frontal cortex back to that reptilian brain, and we're in fight or flight at that point. it's so key to remember in that moment that when you feel like you're losing control of whatever that situation is, and I don't even think it has to be a critical incident like what I would deal with. It can usually be remedied by your breathing. If you can get control of your breathing, then you've got enough time to be thinking about what the actual next steps are that are inside your control and what's not inside your control, you know. And how you put those down depends on who you are and what your training is on that side of it. But at least I know that I've made some really clear decisions that I can back, and they may have been in the heat of the moment, but they weren't not thought out, to put an annoying double negative in there.
No. I just want to ask a question. Can all this map onto the pressures people feel when they're having anxiety attacks?
100%.
When they're going through, these suicidal ideations?
Yeah.
Am I right that type of mindset increases your breathing, you start hyperventilating, and from what you're saying, as a lifesaver, that's not an optimal space to save life?
No, not at all.
And this box breathing is a way to regulate that?
Yeah. I do this in just normal life when I'm about to lose it because my 4-year-old has, just slowed down the morning horrendously or spilled everything all over the floor after me asking him not to, and I'm just on the brink. Then it's the moment where I stop and I'm taking notice of what my breathing's doing. It's quite interesting how it changes your thought process purely from that, just from taking the time to breathe, because you actually have time. You have time. People don't think they do.
I want to ask if you can take us through box breathing.
Yeah,
just
sure.
for people who might be watching this and being like, what do you mean box breathing?
Box breathing is if you imagine you're counting to 4 or whatever you can actually do sustainably. 4 is a good number in that sense. You are breathing in over a 4 count, and then you're going to hold it for a 4 count. Then you're going to breathe out for a 4 count, hold it out for a 4 count, and repeat. So we're going to breathe in with me.
Yep.
Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Calming.
Reoxygenating.
Yeah.
Your body needs oxygen, and it needs to be able to deal with the stress hormones that are building, and it can't process those if you're not fueling your body.
So box breathing, that type of breathing, something you can do in very stressful moments, like
but not even just very stressful moments. I've done it with my nephew when, he's been asked to get off his phone to come and have dinner. Little moments like that, and I can see as a 12-year-old he's about to lose the plot as a 12-year-old would, and it still works in that same way.
Our youth are used to going at a pretty fast pace.
Yeah.
In fact, an algorithm of social media probably encourages a bit of hyperventilation, the triggering effect and
absolutely.
accessing those parts of our mind, that maybe make us team up against one another.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge, I guess, is slowing it down. How do you get those young people to try?
It's got to come from a place of relationship first. When someone doesn't know you, you are an authority figure. You're someone who's telling them how they should do something, how they should live. And I don't know if you remember being a teenager, but I don't want to be told how to live, and I don't care about your experience or what you know because you're old. My best friend's kids, we're actually really tight, and they might tell me things that they wouldn't tell their parents. And I think that's because of the relationship that we have. I don't think you can tell anyone anything unless they've got that growth mindset of it's better to have wisdom than knowledge. I'd rather learn from your mistakes than learn from my mistakes. That lesson takes time for most people. So I think it's got to start from a place of building relationship if you're trying to affect someone's life.
What about for those people watching and they're like, maybe they are the young ones and they're like, oh, I need to have relationship, but I can't find that. I mean, were there strategies, or what am I trying to say here? Are we just lucky to have had good people around us, or is that something you can find yourself?
For me personally, I'm really blessed that I have a outgoing personality. I'm pretty optimistic, and 9 times out of 10, I don't mind making a fool out of myself to meet someone new or to ask a question or something like that. And I think that has shielded me massively in terms of how I feel in my peer group. It doesn't really matter if someone doesn't like me 9 times out of 10 because I've got other things going on. It's the least of my worries. For the people who don't come from that place of I've got all these other things that I can be doing in my life, or I'm comfortable with who I am, then that's really difficult, I think.
What is it like when you work with a young person or a teen and you see that transformation?
The first time I saw the power of walking alongside someone was a friend of mine actually at high school, who I knew that his parents were having trouble, and we were tight purely because we did theatre stuff together, backstage sort of stuff. He'd given me a suicide note. We escalated it, and a friend of mine was just popular enough to make a difference in the friend groups. And so he's struggling at home, he's struggling at school. He didn't really have a lot of friends, and it didn't matter until this whole other group became his friend. How do I even say this? We got to intervene in the fact that he was going to leave school and kill himself. Basically, that was the end of it. And it was, the idea of that was intense, probably because I never thought that would be somewhere where I would understand that feeling at that point in my life anyway. So when we finally caught up with him, school counsellors, and I slapped him, that was what are you? Which is ridiculous. But my best friend, she pulled him into our friend group, like only a more popular person can do, and have that behaviour accepted. That actually turned him around. He had a solid base of people that cared about him. That was enough shielding from bullies that he got to just be himself. He's an incredible photographer today, like super successful, awesome dude. And a couple of months ago, I remember he emailed us and was like, "Hey, I'd love to catch up because you guys changed my life." It's like, ooh,
he remembers that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Incredibly so. So, yeah, it was pretty. I think that was the first one. The other one that stands out is more of a training thing. I used to go in, again, Surf Lifesaving ran a initiative to get a broader, more diverse type of lifeguard on the beach so that we'd be affecting more communities and almost like sneaking lifeguards into families, and therefore you save whole communities. I remember the first set of lifeguards getting their first rescues. They'd freshly qualified, and we're taking rookies, so 13-year-old kids, for a rip swim. And if you understand how a rip moves, it's not a dangerous function. It's a beautiful movement of water back out to sea. And all of a sudden, there's 5 members of public that had been ripped out of the flags and were in this rip with us. So the rookies swim in like they're trained to do, and these 2 brand new guards get their first set of rescues, like some really difficult rescues for the conditions. And you watch them in an instant come alive and be all about what we'd trained so hard to do, From that moment, it can be, it's life or death, really, You either recognise it and act, or you don't, and someone's lost. So it was watching them get on fire for that, which is just, it's why I train lifeguards. If you get too internal navel gazing about, stuff that's going on in your life, because there's always bad stuff going on in your life. If you want to break it all the way down to that, I'm not as successful as I want to be. I don't have this picture perfect thing that I should have by this age, or I don't have the body type that I would like to have, or whatever it is. Having the opportunity to look outside of yourself and outside of your circumstances is where you are saving lives. And whether that's making time for someone who's struggling, whether that's being the person who pulls over and helps that super old lady cross that hectic road when people are just walking past, or this literally happened. This girl is standing at the bus stop looking at her like, oh, how is she going to do that? Like, you just help her. And that's, you're making a difference even in those small moments. And it really puts in perspective, I find, how good I've got it comparatively. I've got a roof over my head. I've got 2 beautiful kids. I've got the support of my parents. I've got an incredible friend group. I've got an incredible church base. I've got awesome gaming friends. I like the whole gambit. When I look at when you help someone else, it really does clear that sort of stuff up, I find.
You talked about a rip being something beautiful. Can you just talk about that a bit more? Because 99% of us are really scared of being pulled out, not understanding what's happening. I think there's a metaphor to life as well.
Yeah.
We're being pulled out and I don't know why. I know one of the things that you're supposed to do is not fight it.
Yeah.
But man, we fight it.
Yeah. And then you get tired. And then you run out of steam. And then you go under. Yeah. You know what happens after that. So the water comes into shore. It's got to go back out some way. It usually uses the natural lie of the land, the deepest spot, to create a current moving out to sea. And then it just becomes more waves again and comes back in. So that calm patch at a beach that has normally breaking waves, so this can't be like a takapuna or a long bay that doesn't have a lot of clearly even breaking waves. I'm thinking West Coast. That calm patch is going out to sea, and people think, oh, that's where I should swim because there's no waves there and waves are so scary. But even in life, a couple of little hits is what helps you steady yourself, yeah? But that easy road is really an easy road way out the back. So I think it depends on your resilience and on your training as to what you do with that rip. For us as lifeguards, that's a fast way out the back. For you as a member of public, I'd be saying relax, raise your hand, ride the rip. And I mean, sometimes we really do just have to wait until it all just dissipates. Yeah, and whether that's breathing, whether that's putting your hand up because someone's going to come for you. That's why you do that signal. Or whether that's riding that rip until you're in a place where you can actually catch some waves back in. So is that self-resilience? Yeah.
Māori and Pacific sometimes don't ask for help because we operate in high trust relationships. Is that also seen in the water?
Overrepresented in the drowning stats. And I think the other part of that is Māori and Pacific Islanders have a higher affinity to water too. You know, so we're going to be around it more. That's higher opportunity and that I think that's going to increase those stats as well. The
lifeguard arrives and everyone's like, yay, I'm caught in a rip.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fighting it. I don't know what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And I'm getting more tired.
Yeah.
And you start swimming towards me.
Yeah. Firstly, I'm not going to get too close because I can't help you if you drown me. So, and I think in terms of mental health, it kind of works. It's a really important lesson to learn. We might be empathizing, but we're not sympathizing. Well, I'm not going to get into your struggles with you. I'm going to walk alongside you in that sense. So whether that's me bringing you a tool, a flotation device, or whether that's me helping you into a position where you can float on your back, whether that's me holding you up and coaching you through your breathing. That's probably one I've done with swim school kids who are panicking the first time they get into deep water, where I'm going through my toolkit basically of the different strategies that I could be using for you as a person, because you're different to everyone else who's in this circumstance. and whichever one lands is the one we'll go with. That also depends on what's in my toolkit at the time and how energized I am. And yeah.
Every time we've talked about surf lifesaving, we're really just talking about lifesaving.
Yeah.
Get too close, not too close.
Yeah.
That you do need someone who understands your surroundings better.
Yeah.
That you're going to tire yourself out.
Mm.
And that's where I think, overrepresented our people are finding themselves.
That it's okay to ask for help from someone who has that level of experience too. It's not, I mean, I've been to counselling myself, and I think that's the things you learn in that space from someone who's skilled in it. Why would you go to someone who didn't know? So I've, over my life, had 2 separate stints with counsellors. In my early 20s, I was all sorts of things. I was in a relationship that I think in my heart I saw leading into forever and being this amazing thing, but every other part of me knew that that's not what was going to happen, and it wasn't right. Meanwhile, I'm ridiculously overcommitted in church and uni and sport and scuba diving and whatever other things that I could get my hands in because I'm high energy. But financing that means I have to work as well. So let's swim teach 6 days a week on top of that, while slowly getting more and more allergic to chlorine, your skin burning, but then because of all the stress, you're not sleeping. And so all of these things bank up. And I'd never thought about suicide in a suicidal, in your standard, I could hang myself sort of situation. But I guess as a Christian, it sounds dumb when I say it like this, but I thought, you know what, God, if I could take someone else's cancer, like, a mum of 6 kids who really needs your time. I have 0 dependents, and I could totally take that, and I'd be happy to stop right here. I was lucky enough to be in a church where they were like, hey, we'll pay for some counselling for you, because I was in a really shitty mental space, I guess, really tough mental space. She walked me through how I was feeling, and sometimes I felt like it was a bit wishy-washy. I wanted someone to just be like, no, you're the expert. You tell me what I should do and I will do it, and then my life will be better and it'll be easy and we'll be done with this. I can just tick all these boxes, which doesn't work like that. It'd be nice if it did, but that's what I was hoping for, I guess. More and more what felt like that I could only see this far, basically. That I couldn't see what's the saying? The forest through the trees, the trees through the forest, whichever way that goes. Yeah. I could see a future, and I could see a way out after this, and what amazing things could happen with the rest of my life, rather than being like, I'd be sweet to be done right now. I think I went on antidepressants through that time as well, which was a good choice for me. And my boyfriend at the time had said, was like, well, don't I get a say in this? And he was like, it's not your body. And that was another thing that was just I understand now that I'm not listening to myself in reality. So slowly I came through that, I guess, period of depression, and the only other time I've been through counselling has been I had a critical incident where I did a CPR situation at a shooting. As a situation with all my training behind me, the actual first aid side of it and being part of that scene, and, having the cops walk around with those huge guns and managing the bystander situation, all of that stuff I'm trained to do, and that was fine. And I afterwards evaluated my performance as a teacher of CPR and was really stoked with how I did. But a couple of things in my personal life fell apart after that. So I took up the opportunity that victim support gives you after a situation like that to be with a counsellor through that time. Yeah, it was amazing, like working through conflict resolution and stuff that I hadn't linked to a traumatic situation like that. I feel richer for it, absolutely. Yeah.
How would you describe that? Is it something that's thrust upon you, you're trying to cope with, there's a hangover from that?
there's a hangover. That's probably a really good way to put it. I'm someone who will go into a situation like that willingly. It's not thrust on me to go and be part of CPR or something like that. That's a choice, and I'm trained to do it. That side of it is pure mechanics. But all of the stuff that flows on after that is not. My 4-year-old was asleep in the car the whole time, the entire time, for like, grace of God, 5 hours. This never happens. Wakes up completely fine after that. Wakes up to all of these amazing, beautiful fire engine lights, and he's just happy, and what a great day it was for him.
How does that come that you're doing CPR and there's police with guns?
Yeah, it was a hectic one. I was driving back to Auckland from a education event with Parafed Northland, an awesome organisation. A man with blood on him just ran out onto the motorway trying to stop cars, and I see a man with blood on him, and I'm like, I've got high-level first aid training, and I carry a defib and all sorts of other good things. So I went to help him, and yeah, it flowed on from there into a scene somewhere else where someone else was injured. So that was how that happened. But
and just returning to when you went to counselling, lots of people will be embarrassed about saying they can go to counselling. I know it's something that's tied into this ancient thought patterns of you're not tough enough, or pride, or maybe in a spiritual sense there's something wrong with me. I'm not, But can you talk about, I guess, the bravery to A, ask for help?
Yeah.
If you're stuck in that rip, and B, what kind of things did you experience that help you to see the trees?
One of the coolest parts was getting to choose my counsellor. So I Googled basically. Victim support gave me a list of counsellors that I could go to, and I read up about them and found someone who I thought shared my belief structure, someone who thought similarly to me, and therefore I guess I already had an idea that we'd have a good relationship. Thankfully that was the case, and I know that you can go, well, this isn't right for me in terms of a counsellor, and you can try someone else in that sense if the fit's not awesome, because I think that's important. I personally have never really had a stigma about it. I know counselling's not for everyone. People are like, I don't want to talk about my feelings, but I learned so many tools, actually. I think that was it. It's not just a big time of let's explain it and have hugs, and ways of communicating and unpacking thought processes and why I think the way I think, and therefore what coping mechanisms I rely on, how I think other people think, and why I shouldn't care about how other people think in terms of all of this thinking, One of the things was dealing with relationship conflict. When you have a reoccurring issue with a person and your behaviour patterns are like a infinity symbol, a figure 8, I'll say this thing. I know you'll react to that thing. So that swings us back into a circular argument where you know that part of my person, that's going to trigger me. But we can actually choose at any point in time, to break that pattern. I don't actually have to respond because you said something, and there's that real, I think in the situations that I was thinking of, there's that want to make sure that I got the final word, or that my evidence was heard. And I don't actually need to be heard because I know how I feel, and I know what happened or my perception of what happened, and I don't need to perpetuate this argument that I know is going to be this tennis match. It doesn't serve either of us. It just wastes time. In terms of marriage, a little thing called the 4 Horsemen, which was a really interesting, I think it's a psychological theory where there are 4 behaviours that people do inside of a marriage or relationship, I guess. The therapist says signal the end, but obviously at any point you can change them. So things like condescension to your other half, really interesting principles. And instantly I could see when he was telling me about these things, I was like, oh, I know when I do that. I know when I'm looking down on him. I feel this one from him. And those sort of things were really interesting to be aware of. And I think especially to be aware of in terms of it's not just another person doing something to me. It's I have a choice and I have behaviours that I need to own in that respect as well.
We don't really know what therapists and counsellors do. And
Right.
you're kind of like, the way I'm hearing you, it's someone to talk to
Yeah.
who understands how sometimes the mind works
Yes.
and to help you agree when you shouldn't just follow those paths
Yeah.
that probably make your breathing go faster, make you in the hyperventilative state, and all of a sudden you find yourself panicking again.
Yeah.
And
Making rash decisions.
getting tired. That's those little waves you were talking about constantly hitting you. You were talking about, being busy. You needed this to service that, needed the jobs. Those quickly piled up on you.
Big
And
time.
I guess I hadn't really thought in this podcast that sometimes it's the little things that lean on you and lean on you, and all of a sudden you were tired. These are also get our mind to start going down to those dark places.
Yeah, big time. You're just juggling too many balls. I think my upbringing has taught me that achieving is really important, but the downside of that is that achieving is really important. And that means that what have you done today? Has that been worth it, or have you wasted your time? I have a lot of lists in that sense of things that I want to do in a day, and I feel like it's an epic day when I've achieved heaps of things. But I mean, probably more so in the last 6 to 8 months, I've been more content with the idea of if I don't get any of that stuff, if I still can't see my couch because of how much washing there is, that's actually okay. If Ayla and I got to play in the paddling pool, and I got to build a shelf in my house, or that's totally fine, because it's actually an achievement to choose not to do things as well. The hard part in terms of New Zealand culture is also, and a friend of mine was saying this just the other day actually, we also pride ourselves on helping people to our detriment. We might give everything to like an organisation, or whether that's in a church sense, or in a volunteering sense, or you're getting too close to that drowning person in your life and they're pulling you under as well, but you can't actually help them unless you are maintaining your own backyard first. You actually do have to step away from that and look after yourself. That's a hard one to do because it's seen as selfish. It's not, because you can't look after someone if you're not in a good space yourself.
In some ways, Māori Pacific are proving how much they care about their community.
100%.
Because they're communitying themselves into a rip, aren't they?
Boundaries are viewed so negatively in an age where it's so easy to communicate with each other. The thing that drains me the most is being able to get messages and calls and be interrupted at every moment of my life, and then thinking that I have to respond to that exact thing at that moment because that person wants it or needs it, or I should do that for them. I should do that for them because I care about them. I can take time to not respond to messages straight away. I can focus on just my kids and be happy with that. There's a sense of mum guilt in that moment when I don't choose those sort of things. But then also I'm like, wow, that was a good thing to do. And I think it's about having good boundaries and being okay with what you chose.
If we're in the water, you can't really save someone if they pull you under.
You are of no use if they drown you. That's scary in terms of the relationships in your life where you may have someone who's really close to you and is toxic or is, I don't know, and you can't help them if you are in that space with them.
Maybe that's where the third party, the counsellor, the family friend, the community leader.
Yeah. Organisations like Christians Against Poverty that do like debt counselling and stuff like that. Those sort of people. What is it, the Hope Foundation? a storm can be an epic challenge and really stretching and growing if you're a sailor, if you're a navigator. Just like any kind of physical training, you are breaking muscles, and yes, it hurts, but they grow back stronger in that sense. So I think a little bit of adversity is important if you want to be better at life, or better at anything really. In terms of those holes that are those external things that you may not have, you can't really train for that, or those unexpected situations. One, it depends who's in the waka with you. Yeah. And getting people in the waka with you is important. Having the right tools in the waka to do something about that hole. Worst comes to worst, stick your finger in it.
I want to say thank you for sharing part of your story with us.
Yeah, pleasure.
Talking a little bit about the ocean and the wave and the beauty and the fear that it all represents. And I really like the fact that, you have these tools which allow you to kind of thrive in that, but by no means is it a tool for everything. You talked about that we can quickly overwhelm ourselves. That's something that can happen to any one of us. So to watch out for the stuff on land as well. If someone wants to follow a bit more about what you do, or to learn a bit more about, the cool work you do, is there a place they can join the journey?
I'm pretty involved in surf lifesaving. There's that. I'm pretty involved in my church, which is a vineyard church, just a chill contemporary church. Those are probably my two biggest places that you could probably find me if you want to chat. Happy to chat.
Awesome. That's cool. Well, thanks again for going on that journey with us, and a unique conversation about some pretty special things. So thank you again.
Sure, thanks.
Awesome. If you think you or someone you know may be at immediate risk, call 111 or connect to the following services to get help. Text the Need to Talk helpline on 1737. Call the Depression helpline on 0800 111 757 or text 4202. If you would like more information on suicide prevention training and education, visit LEVAR on www.leva.co.nz. More support numbers are available in the show's description.